So for those of you who are joining us, welcome to What's Up With Us, a discussion about the real property law section and real property issues, cases, hot topics, and a interview with a very prominent real estate lawyer that we're very, very pleased to have. Our special guest is going to be J.J. Sherman, and she's there. I see her smiling. Good to see you, J.J. Can't wait to hear JR's interview with you and learn all about your practice and about what you have coming up in just a few weeks, which is I believe it's the 6th annual Women in Law Symposium. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay.
I'm so thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for this invite.
Believe me, the pleasure is all ours. So thank you very much. And you know what? I think we're good to go. If anybody else joins, they'll just pick up wherever we are, and that will be just fine. My name is Neil Kalin. I am your co-host this afternoon, along with Ashley Peterson. Hi, Ashley. There you go.
Hi, Neil.
And John J.R. Richards. Hi, J.R. How you doing?
Hi, everybody. Very good. Very good. Super excited about today's show.
Yeah, today ought to be great. And for those who were here just about 30 seconds ago, our special guest interviewee, J.J. Sherman. Hi, J.J.
Hi, everyone.
All right,
Okay,
JJ.
so that's what we're going to do. We've got a lot of good stuff. We're going to try and get right into it. See if I can get this working. So here's our agenda today. Already did the introductions. We're going to have our interview next. We're going to talk about our hot topic today is the 3 real estate related propositions that were on the ballot, 15, 19, and 21. And there was a recent lawsuit, it's still in Superior Court, that had the effect of what can the governor do under his emergency powers in the state of California. And then Ashley is going to lead us in this case, a real estate case about, let's see, what happens or what can you do if there is one party is filed for bankruptcy, but multiple parties are entitled, something like that, right? Right, Ashley, something like that?
Sort of, roughly, yeah. I'll clear it up. I'll clear it up, Neil. Don't worry.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's good. You're there to clear up. Then we're going to talk about, what can you do if you want to get more involved with the real property section? We hope you do. Just joining us today is getting involved, so we appreciate you being here. If you have any suggestions, and of course, our next What's Up With Us is going to be next month. But before we get into any of that, those who are watching, I don't know, if you're about my age, maybe you have kids, maybe you don't, maybe you know of, or you've heard of Hannah Montana. Well, we have our very own here. We have Ashley Montana. Now the rest of us are here. Why stay home when you could be Ashley and be out there in big sky country enjoying life?
Is that real?
That's a real photo. Yeah, that was taken just a month ago.
Oh my gosh.
Beautiful.
How long did it take you to hike up there, Ashley?
It actually wasn't that far from the parking lot. It was only about a mile, so not too bad.
I've been hiking with a friend of mine. We go out like every other week. We don't get views like that here in Los Angeles.
You're in the middle of the wilderness in Montana with beauty surrounding you. It's not too hard to find it, but yeah, definitely worth the trip.
Well, we're really envious of you, and I figured while you were there, maybe I'm a Los Angeles guy, so now I'm a Los Angeles guy. So I thought, maybe you had lunch, with Phil Jackson at his ranch up there. So we'll see. I don't know what you've been doing, Ashley. All I know is that while you were in that big sky, lots of open space, JR and I are back here in California, cramped little spaces, trying to make a living, but apparently not doing as well at that as you are doing. So,
hey, I make it a priority,
So I do have a question, Ash. How many awesome parkas do you own? Because we had one you were like in Alaska or somewhere like that, and you looked like, from a movie scene.
No, so this is a long running thing now because we did this WhatsApp last year around this time, and I was in Montana in the same place, and it was much colder at the time. So I was completely bundled up and had a parka photo, and they were making fun of me back then. But yes, I own several parkas, and they're awesome and warm and perfect for Montana because I swear, like, that day was beautiful, but it dropped to 15 degrees the next day and was a blizzard. So that's Montana weather for you.
And I have to tell you, Ash, we're not making fun of you. We are living vicariously through you. So thank
All
you.
in good fun. It's all in good fun.
Well, we're going to start our program, and JR, you're going to start with our interview of JJ. So let me try and change the screen here. Here we go. Take it away, JR.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to introduce JJ Sherman. She's the principal at JJ Sherman Law, and her practice is commercial real estate and leasing, serving both California and the state of New York. And some interesting things is like she serves retail businesses in expansion mode, investors buying and selling commercial real estate, and business owners leasing and buying office space. So quite an expansive practice. And one of the things that really struck me as I do a little bit of research into people. Forgive me, JJ, I kind of looked into it a little bit. So, and I first thing I really liked about you, by the way, is that you go by JJ, which I think is awesome because I go by JR.
That's right.
And then, so I'm from Ohio, and one of the reasons I go by JR is that everybody in the state of Ohio, I'm not kidding, is named John. So
Yes.
anybody, so it's a very common name to say the least. And that's why I went by JR, and it had to do with Dallas. Everybody always asks me that. Is there a reason why you go by JJ other than it sounds completely awesome?
Well, that is the primary reason why I do go by JJ, because it is awesome and also memorable.
Yeah.
When you're at a convention and you're meeting hundreds of people, they will remember meeting a JJ.
Yeah.
Often they'll say that was my nickname growing up. Often they'll say, oh, like JJ Abrams. They'll have a reference. So it's branding, which is especially important when you're a solo practitioner. The other reason I did JJ was I thought it was very LA. And I also thought that it was neither masculine nor feminine, which was something that I thought was important and perhaps was slightly ahead of its time back when I started going by JJ.
When did you start? When did you start? Like what age range were you in when you started doing that?
When I started my practice, so my solo practice, I had been practicing at big law for almost a decade, and then I went out on my own in 2009. So it's been over 10 years that I've been going by JJ.
And then, all right, so we'll get to that subject since you went there. And then, so you were working for several large, prominent law firms. It sounds like in both New York and California. Is that right?
Yeah, I started off straight out of law school. I graduated from St. John's Law in New York City, and went straight to Sullivan and Cromwell in New York City. And there I joined the commercial real estate practice, and also was able to get involvement and engagement in the banking practice there, the commodities, futures, derivatives practice there. I really had a very well-rounded transactional practice. And then after my time at Sullivan and Cromwell, I went to Latham and Watkins in Los Angeles. And there it was purely commercial real estate. So really got a lot of great training, a lot of great experience working in big law for almost a decade.
Well, and then so I'm really impressed you went from that kind of environment to being a solo practitioner. Did you have to tweak your practice leaving the big firm, or how did that work for you?
Yeah, thank you. I would say yes and no. I had to tweak it in the sense that when you're a solo practitioner, the kinds of clients that you seek are different. Simply because, a Goldman Sachs or a Deutsche Bank is not looking to work with a solo practitioner. They're looking to work with law firms that have a bigger, what do they call it, a bigger bench, right? So instead, from a standpoint of what kind of clients to look for, I instead looked for the kind of folks who maybe had already worked at, say, a Merrill Lynch or a Deutsche Bank, and now were going out and starting their own firms. And so they were sophisticated, experienced, and they also wanted an attorney that was sophisticated and experienced, right? But they weren't looking to go for a large law firm. They were looking for someone that had that training from a large law firm. So
Okay.
it was a question of making a slight adjustment as to the kinds of clients you work with. I find that a lot of my clients are, they're folks that have either worked for the large tech companies or already sold, their businesses to a large tech company, and now they're starting another one. Or they're folks that have significant retail experience in another, in a larger venture, and now they're starting their own retail. It's that kind of story. But in terms of the kind of work you provide, and that doesn't change whether you're, a large law firm lawyer or a solo practitioner, because, the kind of work and advice that you give and the kind of attention that you give to your client shouldn't change regardless of the kind of law firm that you work for.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I was looking again at your website and kind of your background. And so you went to 2 New York City schools, and then, incredible academic credentials like summa cum laude at Marymount Manhattan College and magna cum laude at St. John's University Law School. Did you just know you wanted to be an attorney for a long time? Was that, did you just have incredible direction? Is that why you did so well academically?
I was a really strong student. Thank you. I was a really strong student, and I really loved school. There are people that, don't enjoy being in school. I was the opposite. I loved being in school. I just studied hard, worked really hard, and the hard work paid off is probably the best way to put it. I also had great people supporting me along the way.
Yeah. But so what did you study in undergrad that led you to law school?
Well, I was a theater major and a history major in college. And so I took a lot of different liberal arts kind of colleges courses. But what I do recall is that I took 2 pre-law courses at Marymount Manhattan College. One was constitutional law, taught by an amazing professor. And another one was called Women and the Law, which was, again, ahead of its time. It taught the laws of discrimination and harassment in the workplace. And this was 20 years ago.
Wow.
And it was taught by the woman who was in-house counsel, perhaps general counsel at Hunter College. So I liked those courses, and I just took a chance entering law school. And didn't know whether I would enjoy it or not. I'm the first lawyer in my family. We come from other professions instead. But the first day of law school, I just loved it.
JJ, I was an art history major, English minor, so it proves you can go to law school with any degree.
Yeah, but I was the only person, and I don't know if this is just a state of people don't know their constitutional law before they get to law school, but I was the only student in my legal method class who knew Plessy versus Ferguson. So there you go.
Yeah.
Well, JR, let's get on to
the
Women in Leasing program, okay?
Yes, sir. That's where I was going next. Well, thank you so much, JJ, for sharing all that about you. I'm really, really impressed. Equally impressed, or impressed in a different way, about this new Women in Leasing Symposium. It's the 6th one, but tell us about what you have going on here.
All right, I am thrilled to tell everyone about this symposium. This symposium is the brainchild of Joanne Woodson. who is the woman responsible for getting me involved in this subcommittee in the first place. We met at the ICSC Law Conference last year. I was giving a talk on a leasing matter, and she said, "I'd really like you to join the subcommittee." And I said, "Sure." And then, when she was looking for chairs, I said, "Sure, I'll do it too." But Joanne has been putting this together. This is the 6th year in a row that she's been doing it. It's slightly different this year. We will be doing one event a day, starting on December 7th and ending on the 11th. And the theme, as you can see, is commercial leasing in COVID, in the time of COVID. So the events Monday.
And if I might add, every event is at noon on each day of the week, right? So you just take your lunch break and you can check this stuff out, right?
That's the idea. And as you can also see that Monday and Friday are free, and Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, you'll get CLE credit. So if I can give the rundown, on Monday, Lisa Gooden, who's an attorney on our subcommittee and is a real powerhouse, she's going to be moderating the discussion of real estate brokers who are going to be talking about what they see in the market today and where they see the market heading. On Tuesday, I'm going to be presenting a webinar, CLE, along with Krista Kim, and it's called It's a Tenant's Market, and the whole idea is that we'll be talking about tenant-friendly provisions to be included in leases, given the fact that we're in a very shifting leasing market right now. This is exactly what I do day in, day out. And I'm really excited to share what I've learned in the last 6 to 9 months with the CLA community. Krista is also on the subcommittee, and she's, I'm sure, going to have a lot of valuable nuggets to share with the CLA community as well. On Wednesday, let's see, Joanne and Chan Stroman are going to be presenting the new force majeure clause in commercial leases. It'll be very interesting to see where Joanne and Chan think this is moving. Some say it's not moving at all, and some say it has to move. So, we'll see what they have to say. And then on Thursday, December 10th, Maria Bernstein and some other attorneys are going to be presenting about the takings clause. Maria talks about this in our subcommittee meetings often, how she has been arguing that when a government shutdown occurred in March or April, that constituted a takings under the lease, and therefore the lease terminated and the tenant was no longer obligated to pay rent. So it'll be a very interesting conversation in terms of the basis of that argument and the opposite argument, and sort of where things are falling out under the case law as well.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a very nuanced argument, but Maria, I think, and the rest of the team will really do an excellent job there too. And then Friday, it's a roundtable discussion of women business. Some of them are owners, some of them are CEOs. I know I've invited a client to join, and actually a woman I met at the ICSC is joining too. We have a really interesting mix of retail women to talk about where they see retail going in 2021, and that'll be led again by Joanne, the discussion. So, what's really great about this list is that if you are a specialist, and this is what you do day in, day out, then you'll have something that you can take away. If this is not something that you do, you're just a general commercial real estate lawyer, but you forecast that you probably will need to negotiate, that you'll need to negotiate a real estate lease or two in the next year, then you'll have a lot of takeaways that you'll be able to use for your lease negotiations that relate to, say, oh, if you're representing a tenant, or if you need to think about force majeure. So there's really something for everyone here.
I have to tell you, JJ, I've been to the Women in Leasing Symposium before when they were in person, and they were great events. But they're up in Northern California, right? And so by this being virtual, anybody, anywhere, all real property law section members can attend. You don't have to be a woman to attend. Anyone can attend, and that's one really great factor. I personally, I love this format where you're doing it one day a week for once each day for a whole week. I love that. There's the one that I happen to be interested in, I'm going to be attending, is the one about force majeure. I work with residential forms. We don't have that in our contracts. So I'm going to see if I can come away with some tidbits, because a lot of people think, wow, residential, you might need one for the next, pandemic that
Yeah.
strikes, even though it's been, 100 years since the last one. People are telling us we ought to be thinking ahead. So I can't wait for that myself.
So one thing I wanted to say about the Women in Leasing Symposium is it has a lot of focus to it. And so there's a lot of depth in which, compared to other CLE events that you really go into, and it really does provide a lot of value, whether that's your area of practice or whether more like me, where it's just a portion of my practice. So thank you.
Well, and it's super affordable too, because you can kind of pick and choose if you only want to go to one seminar, or you can do a package deal for a cheaper option. So I've already registered and I'm super excited. I can't wait.
Oh, good. And I know we've also made it so that if you're a law student, or if you know a law student who might be interested in joining, that there is it's free. It's free to them. I know I'm planning on telling my alma mater, if there are law students interested in real estate, please attend, because it's really interesting on trend material. This represents what we've all been negotiating since March. It's not, what's been happening in the last 5 years, but this is what's happening right now. So the material is really fresh.
Well, JJ, speaking of hot topics, perfect lead in. First of all, thank you for joining us today, and feel free to chime in with, the rest of the presentation today. So, but that was really great stuff. It was really interesting to hear about you. By the way, JJ, if somebody wants to contact you before I go on to my next slide, how can they do that?
The best way is through my website, jjshermanlaw.com. Thank you so much. I'm also on LinkedIn. If you just look at JJ Sherman, experienced commercial real estate attorney, you'll find me there too.
All right, good stuff. JR, you had something to say?
No, just thank you, JJ. That was great.
Yeah.
Thank you, JJ.
Yeah, good stuff. We're looking forward to that Women Leasing. It's gonna be wonderful. So what's our hot topic for today? Our hot topic for today are the 3 propositions, real estate related propositions, that were in the November election. Looks like 2 of them are going to fail. 1 of them is going to pass. Got them up on your screen right now. So the first one was Proposition 15, which, if it passed, and you can see it's probably not going to, it's down by 4 points. Almost all the votes have been counted. What it would have done is, of course, Proposition 13 in California changed the way properties are reassessed, right? They're not reassessed yearly. They're reassessed basically when there's a change in ownership. And there's a proposal saying, geez, that's not fair. People are holding onto their properties for a long time. They're not paying their fair share, right? So maybe something should be done about that. The proposition was essentially to allow the existing mechanism to stay in place for residential properties, but to have a different mechanism in place for commercial properties. And there were certain exceptions, but basically, at its core, commercial properties would have been reassessed basically every 3 years. Well, you can see that was voted down by the California population. I'm going to skip to 21, the other one that was voted down, and that was the removal of rent control restrictions, really. It says there are exemptions. Removal of rent control restrictions, because there's a state law that says, well, new construction is exempt from rent control, and single-family residential property are exempt from rent control. And one of the big things that Proposition 21 would have done, if it passed, would have been to allow localities, local jurisdictions, cities or counties, to apply their rent control laws or create new rent control laws that apply to those properties that are now otherwise exempt. Well, California overwhelmingly rejected that, 60 to 40. So that was, I don't know, I think that was a surprise to a lot of people that it was overwhelmingly rejected. There was a similar attempt a few years ago when it was also rejected, but this was really pretty strong and a pretty bold statement of California's feelings about, localities' ability to impose rent control. But the one that looks like it's going to pass, the numbers haven't changed. I've been looking at this for about 2.5 or 3 weeks. The numbers are always about the same, and that is the transfer of property tax bases for seniors. And so what does Proposition 19 do? Well, currently there's something called Prop 60 and Prop 90 that says if you are 55 years of age or older and you have a principal residence, you can transfer your tax basis from your existing residence to a new residence of equal or lesser value. And you could do that within the same county, or you could do that in another county, but only if the other county adopted their own ordinance that allowed you to do that. Well, very few counties in California allowed you to do that, right? Because most counties say, hey, if you're going to come to our county, we want you to be paying, the full value, the assessment on the full value of the property. We don't want you to take your low tax rate that you had in Los Angeles, and apply it somewhere else. So very few counties did that. Proposition 19 says this. It says if you're a senior, and it's interesting, the language in Prop 19 says if you're over 55, it does not say 55 or older, but there's the revenue and tax code says 55 and older. So we'll see how that all plays out in the future if it needs to be interpreted. But basically it says for somebody who is a senior, you can transfer your tax base anywhere in the state of California. You do not have to rely on a county of adopting their own regulation saying we're going to let you do that. Under existing law, you can only do it once. Under Proposition 19, you can actually transfer your tax base up to 3 different times if you are a mover and shaker and you're not happy with your places and you just keep moving from residence to residence. So you could do it up to 3 times. And what was the other thing that it did? Let me see, just a minute. Okay. Well, those are the 2 primary things that did. It also applies to the severely disabled and to victims of a natural disaster. Of course, the biggest natural disaster we've been experiencing in California over the last several years have been wildfire victims. So they have the ability to take advantage of Proposition 19 as well. So a couple of changes. I know I work for the Association of Realtors. We were a proponent of Proposition 19, and they're thinking there's a lot of people, maybe people like me, I've been in my home for 25 years. It would be really difficult for me to go to another place and have that added expense of my property taxes. So part of the thinking is people who feel that they are kind of forced to stay in place, not shelter in place, but stay in place in their current homes, may have more opportunities, to go, move to another location, a freer location closer to their children or grandchildren or whatever it is. So yeah.
I just thought it was interesting as it applies to seniors because, as you know, a lot of the reason why seniors don't leave other than sentimental value of the home that they have owned for a long time is, again, the property tax difference between that and buying a new home and things like that. So I think it really does, at least as far as seniors go, and of course, natural disaster victims, I think that is a great policy. I'm kind of glad to see that Californians have embraced that.
Right, and a lot of seniors, I mean, I'm still working, but a lot of seniors are not working anymore, right? And
Right.
So their income level drops, but if they move somewhere else and they had a big increase in their annual expenditures because of property tax, it makes it a lot harder to do something.
I do have a problem with 55 being considered senior. We'll get to that later on.
Well, I'm still waiting to get to 65 so I could get those discounts at movie theaters but it looks like it'll be a while before I have to go to movie theaters.
You want the early
Like,
bird
go to-
specials, Neil.
Those early bird specials, those two. I'll take advantage of anything I can. You know what, the other thing, I will mention one other thing that Proposition 19 does. Proposition 19 changes a little bit the rules for a transfer from a parent to a child or a grandparent to a grandchild if the parents are deceased. And so there's rules there. It used to be you could transfer any residence that's being used as a family home, and then other properties you can transfer up to $1 million. The other properties, this rule has been taken away. Now it can only be used for one family home from the parent or grandparent to the property being used as a family home by the child or the grandchild. There's some other issues there. Again, if you want to see the summary, if you want to get the proposition itself, you know, I've got some links there for you.
And Neil
then,
also wrote
yeah.
a nice summary in the e-news also.
Yeah, I have to tell you, the one from the intergenerational transfer, there's this formula to kind of figure out how much of the tax basis goes and how much of additional property you can get without being taxed. It's really confusing. There had to be a simpler way to write it, but that's the way it kind of turned out. So I urge anyone who's looking at that, any lawyer, tax lawyer, or accountant, really read that rule carefully. Follow, you know, if this applies, the parent to child transfer applies. You really got to look at that rule carefully to figure out what the new tax basis is going to be for the younger generation.
I'll leave it to the legislature to make us try to decode their symbols.
Yeah, it was a little bit tough. So just read it carefully. That would be my best advice to you. And those are our 3 real estate related propositions. A case came my way recently, so I thought I would bring it out. I have the site. It's a Superior Court case arising out of Sutter County, where Governor Newsom's authority to exercise almost unlimited power under the, I think it's the California Emergency Services Act, was brought into question. And so this case actually put some restraints on the governor. It was specifically dealing with his orders, dealing with the election, but it really addressed more than that. So I wanted to point that out. But the judge said the CESA, it's not unconstitutional, but it does not give the governor unlimited authority. He does not have the authority to amend or to create statutory law. And so an injunction was granted. I have to tell you, I'm not a litigator. I went onto the Sutter County Superior Court site last night. There was a 10-day delay in the decision. That 10 days passed. I noticed on the court's website that it says that there's a petition and it says that there's an order, and I have no idea what that means because I cannot find the underlying documents. But if that's something that interests you, again, you want to go to Sutter County Superior Court, you know, look at the name of the case, and I gave you the case number. It's just something that's going to play out. It's playing out actually throughout the nation as governors are doing a lot of orders, and many of the citizens are saying, well, wait a minute, you know, you don't have the authority, or that's unconstitutional or the like. So this may be the tip of the iceberg in California, or it may go nowhere. I don't know, but it's something that has actually gone to court. There's actually a ruling. The tentative has become final. What has happened after that, I couldn't tell you because litigation's not my thing, and I don't know what I didn't know what those citations meant on the court website. So that was my hot topic update. I think we're doing pretty good on time. We're ready for Ashley's case update, and I see there's a question coming in, so I'm going to look at that question while Ashley's talking, and I'll change the slide for y'all.
Thanks, Neil. All right, so this case is kind of one of those bar exam type questions, sort of, which has an overlap of multiple areas of law. So we have a bankruptcy case mixed with family law, mixed with real property issues on this one. It's a Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals case in re Clifford Allen Brace Jr. is the name of the case. So it was a bankruptcy case filed by a husband. The husband filed for bankruptcy and he was married at the time to his wife. They owned 2 properties that they had acquired during marriage before filing for bankruptcy. One was in Redlands, California, and the other one was in San Bernardino, California. Both properties were held in title as husband and wife as joint tenants. So the issue in this case came down to whether both of the properties were to be included as part of the bankruptcy estate or not. And that hinged on whether in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy proceeding, if the form of title under Evidence Code 662 supersedes the California Family Code Section 760. So for shorthand, the Evidence Code section is basically the presumption of the property is based on the way it's held in title. And so if that was held to be true, then in this case, if it's held in joint tenancy, the property would be sold and divided the proceeds 50% to the bankruptcy estate and 50% to the non-debtor spouse. That was a rule I actually did not know, so it was very interesting to read about that today. I didn't realize that joint tenancy in a bankruptcy situation is treated as a separate property of either spouse. And the other option would be a family code section 760, which would be the community property presumption, which would mean that the entire property would be part of the bankruptcy estate and none of it would go to the non-debtor spouse. So very, very interesting. And in this case, the bankruptcy court actually, the Court of Appeals actually asked a certified question to the California Supreme Court as to which of these code sections would apply here. And the court said that for any joint tenancy property that was acquired during marriage before January 1st, 1975, that's the hinge date, each spouse's interest would be separate property. Whereas if it was acquired during marriage after January 1st of 1975, then it would be presumed to be community property. So ultimately in this case, the Redlands property was deemed to be acquired during marriage before this January 1st, 1975 date. So it was a community property asset and all of it went to the bankruptcy. And then the court remanded the case with regards to the San Bernardino property because the lower court didn't make any kind of a determination on that date of when it was acquired. So that will hinge on when that property was actually purchased. So the very interesting stuff. I had no clue that joint tenancy was determined differently in a bankruptcy case, but yeah, I thought it was very interesting.
So Ash, one of the things I found interesting about this case was you're talking about joint property is separate property, but the bankruptcy trustee has the authority to sell the whole thing, even if only one of the separate owners is the one who has filed for bankruptcy. I guess in Chapter 7, I don't know if there's a difference in other chapters.
Right.
So you're advising your clients, keep these kind of basic things in mind. Nice, good summary in this case, some summary of what's really basic law. Again, it's not something that I was really familiar with. It's not my area of law, but good to know what these things are. And if you have a family practice, your family practice involves real property, or there's some interchange between the two. You want to make sure you give correct advice to your client, of course. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, good stuff. Let's see. There's while I was talking about the propositions, one of our real property executive committee members joined into the discussion, and he raised a point, which was, and I'm presuming he's talking about Proposition 19, and what he says, and this is Franz Furrow, by the way, who will be a guest host next month on What's Up With Us. So thank you for joining us, Franz. And what's the point he makes is that it does not allow trust transfers to keep the tax basis unless the new owner lives in the home, right? So that's actually kind of what I was saying, but I wasn't addressing the issue of trust. So I'm glad Franz brought the issue up about trust, which is for the intergenerational transfer to apply. Guess what? the younger generation has to use the home as their primary residence. And I think they have 1 year to apply for the homestead exemption. I think if they have 1 year to do that. So that's good. Something I forgot to mention as I was going through my list of things that Proposition 19 does, I found in my notes, and that is under the current law, you are only able to transfer your tax basis if you buy a property of equal or lesser value. Under Prop 19, by the way, which does not become effective until April of next year, the intergenerational transfer becomes effective in February. The replacement residence takes effect in April of next year. What I forgot to mention is you could actually buy up and still take advantage of your existing lower property tax basis. So your property tax basis will go up, but it will really go up only on the difference between the value of the property that you sold and the value of the property that you bought. So you get to keep that advantageous lower tax rate on the value of the property that you sold. So just the differential that you will have to worry about paying the increase on. Okay, so thank you for bringing that up. Let's see, we wanted to talk about we've got some time. We got a lot of time left today. So we'll see, maybe everybody will get out of here early.
I have some things to add. They weren't on the agenda, but I think they're good. Here with our CLA real property section, we have 2 upcoming, other than the Women in Leasing Symposium, which is coming up. But before then, we have 2 other ones that I wanted to mention. And so tomorrow, they're talking about Anna Liu, who's our executive committee, is speaking about COVID-19 and the Tenant Relief Act. And she does mostly residential landlord-tenant law. So that should be a really, really good presentation. And then on the 20th. And
Anna, before you finish that, John, Anna has done other presentations. They were really well received. The Tenant Relief Act, COVID-19 Tenant Relief Act of 2020 is incredibly complicated, really difficult if you're a landlord or a property manager. So if you can attend Anna's webinar tomorrow, I think it's at noon, definitely do so. She's a good presenter and will help you understand that really complicated new law.
And then in addition to that, on the 24th, Joanne Woodsum, who was mentioned earlier, friends with all of us who are speaking today, is doing a commercial leasing for non-commercial leasing attorneys presentation. And that actually would be a really good warm up for women in leasing, because some of the other the same topics will roll over. But I think the inference here, JJ, you might correct me, but that we all may be facing some commercial leasing issues really soon, with all the overturn and problems with the economy and how things are running with retail, that again, a lot of attorneys may be dipping their feet into commercial leasing.
That's right.
Yeah.
One way or the other, if you are either a generalist or if you're just a commercial real estate attorney, you're likely going to be getting a leasing question in the next 12 to 18 months.
Right, and JJ, right, all leasing questions are not, 50,000 square foot properties. Somebody has a small strip mall. A lot of the tenants in those kinds of malls have been the ones who have been most dramatically affected by these shutdowns, right? And so all of a sudden, this smaller mall has got a small space. Maybe it's a 1,000, 2,000, 4,000 square foot space, whatever it is, that one needs to be familiar with commercial leases in order to help their clients out in that situation.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Are you through, JR? That was it?
I know you're used to having Tom Lombardi as your partner, so. No, that's it. That's it.
Tom wrote in the comments. He asked if anyone attended the Crocker Symposium. He heard it was a good event.
Well, so last month we talked about the Crocker Symposium. Tom was really co-chair of that event with the LA County Bar, the real property section of CLA. Jointly did that event with the Los Angeles County Bar. It was a tremendous success. They had their largest audience ever from the Crocker Commercial Symposium. So that was great. We certainly hope the Women in Leasing program follows up on that success. And if anyone who's on the line attended it, yeah, send in a comment and say, yes, you did. And hopefully you say it was great. And if you have any other input, yeah, we'll take that. We'll take that as well. But I can't imagine you would say it was anything other than a great program. Oh, here we go. We got one comment. Yes, I did. And it was great. Wonderful. We're so glad to hear that. Terrific. Okay, so what do we have coming up that we want to make sure you know about? Well, listen, are you an editor type, right? I'm not an editor type at all. Nobody would want me reviewing their work that's going to be a scholarly piece that's published in the Real Property Journal. I wrote one, but I wouldn't want to rely on me to edit. But there's a lot of people, they just love that kind of stuff, right? They love doing that kind of stuff. They love correcting. They like finding out about different areas of the law. And if you're an editor, you make connections with the authors, right, who are generally very prominent people in the real estate field. So it's really a good opportunity to either get involved in the real property section or just to further advance your career and maybe just to do something that you like to do. So coming up December 1st, there's going to be a meeting. We hope you register in advance and basically to learn all about the editorial process and what opportunities there are for the Real Property Law Journal. I don't know, Ashley, JR, do either of you have experience editing?
No, not really. I mean, I was an English minor, so I definitely did a lot of reading and writing, but no historical editing experience.
Well, if you don't have any of that experience, you think, oh, well, I don't even want to bother. No, if it at all interests you for those other reasons, attend the meeting, right? Attend the meeting. You might find that this could be for you, and you might find that it's really not as difficult as you think it is. So that's something coming up.
For me, Neil, just to comment, like I'm kind of more of a lightweight. That's why I did the e-news, everything.
Well, hey,
not so scholarly, more human interest. That's kind of...
So I can relate to that. I am on the Real Property Journal's editorial board, but that's because I write a piece that's called the Bar Business Section, right? So I don't write anything scholarly. I just talk about what's going on with the Real Property Section, what's going on with CLA, what's going on with real estate that people want to know about. But somehow they consider me an editor as well, but not what I would consider to be an editor. So I'm with you, JR. I like the lightweight stuff. So here we are. We're coming near the end. You want to get involved? You listen to these programs. You say, "Wow, if JR can do that, I can do that, right?" Maybe I'll get some travel tips from Ashley. I want to get involved. Right? So there's lots of things you could do. Here's a list of our practice area committees. Actually, we're really fortunate because JJ, I think you're the committee chair for the commercial leasing practice area committee. Is that right?
I am, and I would like to invite everyone who's listening to this to attend one of our subcommittee meetings. We meet every 3 weeks. And these meetings, the conversation is more interesting every time. This subcommittee is actually relatively young. It only started, I think, last year. And it really became very active in March of this year, when all of a sudden we were commercial leasing attorneys and we were getting these calls from our clients saying, do I have to pay rent? What happens if I don't pay rent? Are they going to evict me? What's going to happen under my lease? Can I terminate my lease? Can I just walk away? And a lot of us knew what to say because we were experienced, and yet it was a whole new world because we were in the time of COVID. So what happened was I reached out to Joanne Woodson and I said, gee, maybe we should have like a check-in, like a market update, and just sort of check in with each other about how are we advising our clients? What are we seeing in the market? And starting in March, back then, we were actually meeting once a week. And these are all virtual meetings, but really we spend about half the time having what I call the market update. It's where we talk about what we're seeing in the leasing market, on the landlord side, on the tenant side, all on a no names basis. And also different strategies for negotiating a lease workout, different strategies for negotiating with the landlord or the tenant, or talking about rent abatement. What we're finding is that everything old is new again. A lot of like in the last meeting, I mentioned a lease workout that the landlord had offered to my client. And Joanne chuckled and said, oh yeah, that was one of the most popular workouts in the 2007, 2008 real estate downturn. It was very, very interesting. But it has turned out to be really, really fabulous resource for everyone on this subcommittee. I mean, we've got a crew of folks that show up, and again, it's all no names, but if we give a fact pattern of what we're seeing, then, the rest of the subcommittee says, well, have you tried this? Have you tried that? Have you used this language? It really has turned out to be an incredible resource for everyone involved. And if you are actively involved in the leasing market, I strongly encourage you to attend. If you're thinking of getting more involved, or you think that perhaps you'll be negotiating leases in the coming 12 months, please come and join us.
I'm on that committee and it's exceptional, and JJ does a really awesome job running these meetings, and I've found it to be extremely valuable.
Thank you, Ashley. You are a valued member. It's a mutual admiration society. But it really has turned out to be one of those things that until the COVID-19 crisis hit, we didn't necessarily have a purpose for the subcommittee that was identified and specific. But since then, we've really gotten a fabulous routine, and we've provided really a fabulous resource for CLA members.
JJ, I have to tell you that based on your inspiration and Joanne's inspiration, I happen to be chair of the broker and licensees practice area committee or subcommittee, however you want to refer to it. And last year, we had a number of people on our committee, and people had suggestions about ways they were going to get involved. And of course, a lot of that got sidetracked because of COVID. But hearing about the way you and Joanne were running this, about having regular meetings, we started to do that for brokers and licensees. We started last month. And now our members are really excited about being a part of the committee that came up with all of these ideas. We've already had follow through on several of the ideas. We're going to have, I don't think we're going to have weekly meetings, but we're going to have meetings at least monthly. So we learned a lesson that you and Joanne started, which is in order to get engagement, you have to get together. You just can't rely on an email here and there. You get together because you can talk about issues. And once you talk about issues, other issues come up. And whether you can resolve them or not is not the issue, right? The important part is that you get these things on the table so that members can start thinking about it. So thank you for your lead in that.
I'm so glad that it's worked out well. And I think that brokers very much need that today too, based on my experience working with brokers. They definitely need to have that market update to keep a pulse on where things are really going.
And by the way, our broker and licensees committee, I'll just make another shameless plug. Half of the members have real estate licenses. So it's not just attorneys who are practicing the field. You can see on your slide, we're trying to create 2 new practice area committees. So if you're involved in construction, or if you're involved in homeowner associations plan developments, please look at the name down there at the bottom, Marie Wood, mwood at rhlaw.com. You want to get involved in any of these committees, send her an email. She's the chair of all of them. She keeps us all heading in the right direction. So like I said, the commercial leasing committee was really kind of an inspiration to us to get us moving on our committee in the right direction. So thank you for that.
I'm so glad to hear it.
Okay, so what else do we have to do? Well, I'm looking to see if there's, any other hands, though we did have one comment. So those of you who are reading the chat, you can see it, but Fran said he edited an article and it was not a huge time commitment. So that's good to know. Like I said, that's really out of my realm of expertise. So it's nice to hear from somebody who has that expertise that you could do it, you could try it. You're not going to be, burning the midnight oil every single night. That you can do it, you try it, and if you like it, you'll stay involved, hopefully, with our journal. Okay. What else? Well, we're going to be back again next month. We're going to try to do our Thursday again. We got bumped because we wanted to make sure everybody attends Anna's presentation tomorrow on the COVID Relief Act of 2020. But hopefully we'll be back at a Thursday slot next month. You're going to have JR, you're going to have Ashley, and you're going to have Franz. I'm going to take the day off. We'll see. So be there, be square, bring your own lunch because it's going to be at 12:30 next month. Closing comments from anybody?
Great show.
Good job, everybody.
Thank you for joining us, JJ. We really appreciate having you.
Thank you, JJ.
Thank you. It was a thrill to be invited. Please invite me back.
Do it.
We will.
We appreciate it. Okay, Micah, take us away. If you need to close us out, close us out. I'll stop sharing my screen and say bye, everybody, until next month.